Okay, so if you've ever dipped a toe into the world of software development, you've definitely heard the names Git and GitHub thrown around. They're everywhere. But honestly, for a lot of people, the difference between them is kind of fuzzy. So today we're going to clear that up. We're going to break it all down and look at how these two tools totally change the game for building software together. But first, we have to start with a problem that I am sure you've run into, whether you code or not. Does this file name look painfully familiar? Yeah, we've all been there. You're just trying to keep track of your changes, and your project folder turns into this absolute mess of confusing names. And, on one file it's an annoyance, but when you're working with a huge project, it's just total chaos. And that chaos, right there, is the exact problem that a really smart idea called version control was invented to fix. It's all about bringing some sanity, some order, to the whole process of making and changing files over time. So what is it really? Well, a version control system, or a VCS for short, is basically a time machine for your files. It keeps a record of every single change you make. This means you can rewind and jump back to any specific version of your project at any point in time. So yeah, say goodbye to final_final_v2, use this one doc forever. The earliest attempts at this were pretty simple. They were local systems. I mean, think of it like a personal diary of all your project's changes, but it only lives on your computer. Now, it was definitely better than just copying and pasting folders, for sure. But what happens the second you need to work with somebody else? Yeah, it kind of fell apart. All right, so the next step in the evolution was centralized version control. The idea was simple. Put the entire project and all its history on one single central server. Everyone on the team connects to that one server to get the latest files and save their changes. And for collaboration, this was a huge improvement. But it had one giant glaring weakness. What happens if that one server crashes or the network goes down? Yep, the whole team is dead in the water. Nobody can work. And that brings us to the modern, game-changing solution, the distributed system. Now, here's the brilliant part. Instead of just grabbing the latest version of the files, every single developer gets a full, complete copy, a clone, of the entire project's history. This is huge. It means the system is super resilient, there's no single point of failure, and incredibly flexible. And this is the model that Git is built on. Okay, so we've got the backstory. Now let's zoom in and talk about the tool itself, Git. And I want you to really hang on to this idea. The best way to think about Git is as your own personal, superpowered time machine for your code. Now, here's the really crucial thing to understand about how Git works. A lot of older systems just tracked the changes between files. Line 5 was deleted, line 10 was added. Git doesn't do that. Instead, every time you save your work, what we call a commit, Git takes a snapshot of what all of your files look like at that exact moment. It might sound like a small difference, but it's what makes Git so incredibly fast and powerful. So let's look at how this actually works on your computer. It's really a three-step process. First, you have your working directory. This is just your project folder where you're editing files, writing code, doing your thing. Next, when you've made some changes you like, you don't save them directly. Instead, you add them to the staging area. Think of this like putting items in a shopping cart before you check out. It lets you pick and choose exactly what changes will be in your next snapshot. And finally, you commit. This takes everything in the staging area, creates that snapshot, and saves it forever in your local repository. It's like a little dance. You modify, you stage, and you commit. All right, so we've established that Git is that powerful time machine living on your computer. So then what in the world is GitHub? Well, if Git is the time machine, think of GitHub as the social hub. It's the public library or the online clubhouse where all these individual time machines can come together, sync up, and share their stories. At its heart, GitHub is a website. It's a cloud-based service specifically designed to store or host your Git repositories online. It takes all the raw power of Git and builds this amazing layer on top of it with features designed purely for collaboration. Things like sharing your code, talking about changes, and managing huge projects with lots of people. Okay, this is probably the single most important point of confusion we need to clear up, so let's make this crystal clear. Git is the tool. It's the software on your computer. GitHub is the service. It's the website on the internet. Git manages your project's history. GitHub hosts your projects for others to see. You can absolutely use Git all day long without ever using GitHub, but you can't use GitHub without Git. It's built on top of it. One's the time machine, the other's the social hub.
So how do these two things actually work together? Let's walk through the basic workflow, the step-by-step process that millions of developers use every single day to get their work from their own computer up into the cloud for everyone else to see.
It always starts with you, working locally on your own machine. You're doing that three-step dance we talked about. You modify your files, you stage the specific changes you want to keep, and then you commit that snapshot to your local repository. This is your own private workflow. You can do this over and over again 100 times a day, and you don't even need to be connected to the internet. Okay, but now, what happens when you're ready to share those commits with the rest of the team? Well, that's when you use something called a pull request, or PR for short. And this is key. A pull request is a GitHub feature, not a Git command. And it's named perfectly. It is literally a request you make to the project owners asking them to pull your changes into the main project. And that pull request kicks off the whole collaborative loop. Here's how it works. First, you push all your local commits up to your repository on GitHub. Then, you create that pull request. This basically opens up a discussion page where your teammates can see your exact changes, leave comments, suggest improvements, and have a conversation about the work. And then only when everyone agrees and the changes are approved, they get merged into the main project. It's this beautiful, transparent, structured way to work together. Now, this might sound like just a bunch of technical steps, but I can't overstate this. This workflow has had a massive impact on the world. It has completely changed how we build software. It really, truly changes everything. You know, to really make this whole process sing, it's actually less about being a coding genius and more about being a good communicator. There are a few best practices. For one, keep your pull requests small and focused. Think surgical strike, not giant data dump. Always take a minute to review your own work before you ask others to. Write clear descriptions so people know why you made these changes. And, super important, always pull down the latest changes from the team so you're not working with old code. And that brings us to the big picture. This workflow, this combination of Git and GitHub, is the engine that powers the entire modern open source movement. It's what allows thousands of developers, many of whom have never met, from all corners of the globe to work together on incredibly complex projects. We're talking about things like the Linux operating system or the web browser you might be using right now. It is fueling innovation on a scale we've just never seen before.
So, let's leave it with this final thought. By creating this system where every single idea, every contribution can be tracked, discussed, and woven into a project without the fear of it ever getting lost, well, Git and GitHub have done more than just create a tool. They've shown us a new way to build things together. And it makes you wonder, right? What else could we build if our collaboration was always this seamless and no great idea was ever truly lost?